wrestlers who need to have that wrestling psychology demonstrated to them. One of the greatest wrestling psychologists of all time, I really believe, was Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, he just had a knack for wrestling psychology. I sat down with him for an hour and 15 minutes on the radio and talked about everything from his wrestling career to his crack addiction, and that was an unbelievable conversation I had. But one of the things that came up in the conversation was wrestling psychology and how not enough wrestlers demonstrate great wrestling psychology, and how I put him over as being one of the greatest wrestling psychologists of all time. And if not for his wrestling psychology and how he went about presenting it, I don't think we would be seeing wrestling psychology demonstrated to its finest like we are now in 2015. There still is a lack of wrestling psychology, but if not for people like Jake the Snake Roberts, I don't think that we would have ever gotten as far as what we did with wrestling psychology up to this point. And that's why John Cena is as good as what he is. He's putting asses in seats, and he's even continuing to do that as the U.S. champion. And again, of course, he doesn't need the championship to be popular. He doesn't need a U.S. title or a WWE championship to be popular. Not after 15 championships. Obviously, the question if John Cena is going to be departing ways with the company, that has been answered. Obviously, John Cena is not going anywhere. There's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not John Cena is going to stay under contract with the WWE, with him holding on to that U.S. championship and continuing the U.S. Open. Obviously, he's not going anywhere, and obviously because they're trying to promote newer champions and newer faces in the way of Seth Rollins and Adrian Neville's in WWE, and they just recently gave King Barrett the idea of being King of the Ring now. The Bad News Barrett character has morphed in to King Barrett. Obviously, with so much going on in WWE, they're trying to give John Cena something to do just to keep him there under contract with the company so he doesn't go elsewhere. If, in fact, he does lose the U.S. Championship to Kevin Owens, then it will be thrown up in the air whether or not John Cena is going to stay with the company. Maybe he'll leave after losing to Kevin Owens, and then we'll consider Kevin Owens being the individual as the guy that John Cena passed the torch to, and then Kevin Owens will go on to become a fan favorite from being someone who everybody hated as a heel character. Obviously, something is being done here, and something is obviously going to come of this U.S. Championship Open. What it will be John Cena passing the torch and possibly a departure. If Cena beats Kevin Owens, then obviously he's going to be sticking around. But I think one of the biggest questions that needs to be answered is who and when will John Cena pass the torch to them, and when will it happen? Will it be at a pay-per-view coming up very soon on the pay-per-view calendar? Are they sure will it in fact be at the end of the year? Before the end of this year, we'll see it happen? Or will it not happen until sometime like 2016 around WrestleMania 32 time in Dallas? There's a lot of questions surrounding why John Cena is U.S. champion. Obviously, one of the answers is because they're trying to find new things for John Cena to do. Because you take a look at his resume, Money in the Bank winner, 15-time champion. John Cena's won the Royal Rumble twice in 2008. 2013, he's main event at WrestleMania. I mean, honest to God, John Cena's resume definitely speaks for itself. Very rarely do you hear me putting over John Cena, but what he's doing for the young crowd in professional wrestling with the U.S. Championship over his shoulder, I think it's great. I think he's setting a great example for these young wrestlers who are going to be there long after John Cena hangs up his boots, although I don't see it happening anytime soon. Now, I have said it's time for John Cena to give up. I've said it's time for John Cena to quit in some of my recent video blogs. I will not deny that or cover up the fact. I haven't been the biggest John Cena fan in recent years. In the last couple of months, I've been really down the throat of John Cena for everything that he's done. I mean, I'll give John Cena credit where credit is due for granting as many wishes as he has for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, being there for everything WWE tries to promote, from the WrestleMania Reading Challenge to the anti-bullying campaign. He's always been there and been very outspoken about never giving up. John Cena has a great outlook on life, and I wish more people and more professional athletes and wrestlers had the same outlook on life and perspective that John Cena has, because you can never have enough good positivity when it comes to outlooks on life. And this never give up thing for John Cena is amazing. I just wish that John Cena would kind of take a back seat to some of these newer superstars, because that's why people like Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler, who I mentioned here at the top of the show before I played his entrance music, just never given the benefit of the doubt. I really wish that more people were given the benefit of the doubt in the way of being pushed in the main events and getting opportunities at championships. Because, I mean, you take Dolph Ziggler, for instance, when he was world champion in 2013, really what was ever done with Dolph Ziggler being world champion? Nothing. It was just 1 minute he was champion, and the next minute he was gone, here and gone. It seems like so many wrestlers kind of come and go because people like John Cena and Randy Orton are always finding ways of overshadowing wrestlers like Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, and their contributions contributions. I mean, whatever happened to pushing Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, and Wade Barrett and Bray Wyatt? Nothing was ever done with these characters, and I really wish more would have been amounted to for these wrestlers. I mean, King Barrett is a good idea for Bad News Barrett because we've seen way too much of Bad News Barrett in the bad news segments on WWE.com and how JBL's been putting him over as his favorite wrestler. It's a good idea to put him as King Barrett and have JBL put him over even more in more ways than he did when he was Bad News Barrett. But really, how far is this King gimmick going to go? How far did it go for King Sheamus? How far did it go for Billy Gunn and Brock Lesnar? Really, in later years of the King of the Ring tournament and earlier years, the King of the Ring title and accolade meant something. But now, it's just an excuse to get people to watch the network or to watch WWE to find out who's going to be the King of the Ring. It's not as if someone like King Barrett is going to be number one contender for the championship. Yes, I can see him reclaiming his Intercontinental Championship eventually from whoever the champion is by the time he reclaims it. But he's not going to be champion anytime soon, and that's really unfortunate because I really think that people like Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett, and Bray Wyatt deserve opportunities to be champion, and God knows Dolph Ziggler has been waiting in the wings for his opportunity to be champion after 2 years of being on hiatus, of challenging for the championship. I mean, all the accolades Dolph Ziggler has achieved, even a world title, I mean, out of all those accolades, he should be up for the championship, especially after what happened to him at Survivor Series, saying it was one of the best nights of his life when Sting put him over. And it's just because people like John Cena and Randy Orton are always overshadowing them. It's time for people like Dolph Ziggler to step up their game and challenge John Cena in the U.S. Championship Open. And I'm sure you're waiting on your favorite wrestler to challenge John Cena in the U.S. Championship Open, much like myself, because there are so many wrestlers like Dolph Ziggler and Bray Wyatt who could come out of this U.S. Championship Open as champion and get an opportunity to make a name for themselves at the expense of John Cena. We know that Dolph Ziggler has feuded with John Cena before. We know that Bray Wyatt has done the same thing, but they have never had a crowning moment against John Cena. Beating John Cena in a cage match for Bray Wyatt, and beating John Cena a couple of times for Dolph Ziggler in a ladder match for the Money in the Bank briefcase, yes, it was defining, definitely it was, but it wasn't enough. We need a victory over John Cena in the way of Dolph Ziggler or Bray Wyatt for a major championship, which is why I think this U.S. Championship Open can ultimately amount to something far greater than what it has. Yes, I appreciate the Dean Ambroses and the Stardust giving John Cena the fights they have, even Rusev, as much as I don't like Rusev's character and his approach towards America. But I think there's more that can be done with this U.S. Championship Open. It has a lot of potential, and it can definitely go places. It's got people talking on social media. That's the really critical thing, the really important thing to notice and take from all of this. It's got people talking on Facebook and especially on Twitter. Wrestling fans are tweeting all the time about who they'd like to see John Cena face for the championship, who they'd like to see step up their game and challenge John Cena in an incredible match. I've got some suggestions for you in the way of Dolph Ziggler's and Bray Wyatt's. I want to know who your suggestions are for John Cena's next opponent in the U.S. Championship Open, which will continue on editions of Raw and SmackDown throughout the next couple of weeks, leading up to, of course, pay-per-views like Elimination Chamber, Money in the Bank, Battleground, and SummerSlam. I see John Cena holding on to this championship for the next few months and possibly losing it as early as SummerSlam because they're trying to really run with the idea of John Cena being a four-time U.S. champion. It was over 11 years ago, just to put it in perspective for you, that John Cena won his first major singles title, and it was the U.S. title at WrestleMania 20 in 2004 in MSG. He faced The Big Show in an incredible U.S. championship match that went about 15 to 20 minutes. The Big Show was knocked out with a chain, and then after he was stunned, he was given the FU, and John Cena went on to capture his U.S. championship. That was when he was looked at as a young punk from the streets of West Newbury, Massachusetts, who had nothing going for him, and then he turned around his life around by winning the U.S. title. That was over 11 years ago. Now, 11 years ago, after John Cena wins his first major singles title, he wins the first championship he ever had the chance of holding again for a record fourth time, the U.S. title. So there's obviously something going to come out of this. What, I don't know, and I really wish I had the answer for you to that question, but it's only going to take a matter of time before we find out what it's going to amount to, if it's Kevin Owens, if it's somebody else, regardless of what it is. It's obviously hyping up to something far greater than what it has, and I really appreciate what the U.S. Championship Open has done for WWE. At least the championship, even if it isn't the WWE Championship, is being defended every week, week in and week out on Monday Night Raw. And here's the thing, if Raw was an hour like it was back in the 90s or even 2 hours, I would understand why we would have limited numbers of championship matches happening on Raw. But here's the thing, Raw is up to 3 hours now. Even on 2-hour Raws, we saw the title defended more, and I know a lot of it had to do with the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW and how WCW were ahead of WWE, and the WWE jumped ahead because they were trying to put championship matches on television as opposed to pay-per-views. At one point, we were seeing more championship matches on television than we were on pay-per-view, with better outcomes than we were on pay-per-view, just for the sake of having championship matches done on television. But here's the thing, Raw is up to 3 hours now from 2, and in this new era, we have seen very little title defenses and very little title changes. It's very rarely we see title defenses and title changes, even more so title changes than we do defenses. And if we do see a championship match, it's just a lackluster clusterfuck, which really there's no need of having on a 3-hour television show. I think that with Raw being 3 hours, we can have more championship matches, and we can have more unpredictable outcomes because there's room to create something for a 3-hour show that creates something more diverse for a 3-hour show, and it makes your pay-per-views that are up and coming probably a week to 2 weeks prior to them happening more unpredictable because nobody knows what's going to happen, which is why I really appreciate how they changed the triple threat match with putting Dean Ambrose in at the last minute. They had Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton, and then out of nowhere, here comes Dean Ambrose. And now Dean Ambrose has warmed his way into a WWE Championship match at Elimination Chamber. So I really appreciate how they changed it, made the championship scenario in WWE far more unpredictable by throwing Dean Ambrose in there and using him as the proverbial wild card, because we've seen way too many triple threat matches. We saw it at WrestleMania. We were going to see it at Payback, and they changed it, throwing Dean Ambrose in there. Obviously, WWE have a sense of direction. Whether or not you agree with it, that's up to you. That's your opinion, and everybody is entitled to their opinion. But I think I can get away with saying we've seen way too many triple threat matches, which is why I appreciate the element of surprise being utilized, which is why I'm hoping we're going to see John Cena more triple threat matches and fatal four-ways for the U.S. title up until the point that he loses it. To say Kevin Owens is going to run through John Cena would kind of be jumping the proverbial gun. And I'm not going to do that because John Cena could make a name for Kevin Owens by beating Kevin Owens, as I said here earlier, but only time will tell. Eric Bischoff said time was the most precious